What is up, guys, and welcome to another episode of Guarani Vision, the first ever podcast dedicated to Paraguayan football in English. As always, I'm Roberto Rojas, and joining me my two great co-hosts, Fede Perez and Ralph Hannah. And guys, here we are. We're back. We took a little break for Semana Santa for all that do celebrate. It's a big holiday, of course, in Paraguay. So we decided to take a little break. And of course, there wasn't really much going on in that week, but we did see a lot happening this week. Obviously, Libertadores and Sudamericana action for the Paraguayan teams. We also have sort of I would say, an interesting league race so far. You know, everyone's been talking about maybe Libertad are going to run away with it, but these last few games have kind of reconsidered a bit of a hope for other teams below them, like Guarani, like Cerro, like Olimpia. So maybe there is something there. Obviously, when we were gone, Olimpia had made their changes with coach. They got a new one officially. We'll talk about who and how they fared in their game against Peñarol at home. But yeah, let's go straight into how's everything been in the country so far. I'll go to Fede on this one first because obviously we're at the last week of April. We're heading in towards May. May is obviously a crucial month, at least for the European season, because it's the last month. You got championships to be decided, leagues to be decided. And then we head into June where, for us, obviously the attention spans to the Paraguay national team for the big qualifiers against Brazil and Uruguay. And it's happening fast. And, I think a lot of these players, like we mentioned in the last round of qualifiers when it was in February, for example, a lot of these players are really trying to make that list. And, you look at some of the performances that have been going on locally and locally and internationally, maybe it looks like Alfaro is, I mean, I think he has his base, but there have been some performances where you're thinking like, am I second guessing myself? And I think we'll talk about one guy in particular for the Cedro game. But yeah, just how's everything been with you and just the whole country as a whole with this kind of crazy week? Because they also got the what was it, the FIFA Congress in a couple of weeks over there in Asunción, the Beach World Cup. Paraguay are in Africa right now for this tournament. So yeah, it's a lot's been going on in the last few weeks or so.
Hi, Roberto. Hi, Ralph. Hi to everyone listening to Guarani Vision. Yeah, we got so much to talk about. I mean, you threw so many things. I mean, really don't know which one to pick up, to be honest with you guys, but definitely the Libertadores and Sudamericana have been, the silver lining this week. Obviously, not the best results. I mean, we only had one team that really won. Guarani, we talked about it right before coming into the air. I mean, it's the team of the week, right? After taking the unbeaten streak away from Libertad in the Apertura, beating them at home, something that most teams haven't been able to do this year, and beating a giant, obviously always respected team like Independiente of Avellaneda to maintain their first spot in their group. It was definitely their week. I'm really happy for them. They're looking like they're on a winning streak as of right now, and they're feeling really good. I mean, just when you thought, okay, nobody is up to the level of Libertad in the Paraguayan League, now you have Guarani to look out for, and they're kind of getting closer, and you're thinking, is Libertad going to go cold? Are they going to have a problems? Because they lost 2 games in a row, and this hasn't happened for this team before in this season. So it's a special moment to see what can happen going forward, especially because, of the five Paraguayan teams, some of them really look bad out there, especially Olimpia again. I mean, you talked about the coach, the changing, Fabian Bustos coming into the country, but I didn't see anything different from this team this week against Peñarol. I even thought Peñarol had the best opportunities to take it in Defensores del Chaco. Then you had Libertad and Lorenzo Melgarejo's opportunity in the penalty. Oh my God, what happened to this guy? He's such an important player in that team, and he had the opportunity to put it for his team, and then it was Sao Paulo taking it away. Also in Paraguay, so I mean, I'm not happy. Luqueño had an opportunity to win. They had a 2-0 advantage, and they couldn't take it away. I mean, Cerro Porteño also a last-minute goal to take it away from them. I mean, do Paraguayan teams just don't know how to close up games? So what happened this week? We're definitely got to talk about every single one of these situations. So much football action in Paraguay, but I'm also looking at what Paraguayans are doing up abroad, just like you mentioned, Roberto. I saw a goal from Angel Romero, saw a contribution and a beautiful assist, beautiful pass from his brother, Oscar Romero, who's starting to play also in Internacional. He's been away from the national team for so long. I don't think he's ever going to have his opportunity again, especially with how the team is playing. But Alfaro is definitely looking into probably more and more players as we're getting into obviously the games that are coming up, especially Brazil. You're always hearing about Ancelotti coming into Brazil. Is this really going to happen, or who are they going to pick for their coach? But just to pick out on one single thing before throwing it over there to Ralph, I mean Andres Cubas. We got to put this guy on the map also because not just because of that video that's going viral of him having a discussion there in the game against Messi. I mean his current state. I mean the way that he's been playing, the way that his team has also been playing lately. I mean they're in the semifinals of the Coca Champions. They're there for a reason. They beat this team in the first game, and I'm seeing an Andres Cubas that's just playing in his prime. He's playing in top level lately, and I'm loving it because the World Cup is so close, and he's such a vital player for our national team also. And to see him drive Messi crazy, that was a special moment for me in this week also, Roberto. So definitely got a lot to talk about.
He's trying to get really on his nerves again because he already got on his nerves back in November, Ralph, when they beat him over there in the Defensores, and now they're just trying to get he's trying to do it again. We also saw Julian Ciso scoring as well, and a good assist against Chelsea. They didn't win the game, but they, obviously that was his first contribution and the Premier League for Ipswich. So it's yeah, it's been a crazy week, like Ralph, like Fede had said, Ralph. So I think there's a lot going on really that yeah, I don't know where to start. I mean, we'll start with Cedro in a bit, but really, it's been such an insane week.
Yeah, a lot going on. Like you were saying, I mean, talking about quickly the beach soccer team there in Seychelles, I mean, they're having a great time. They pick some good locations for these World Cups, right? I wouldn't mind being in Seychelles. I think they went to Tahiti before in another World Cup. So they won against the hosts 8-3 in like a warm-up friendly. And I think they start against Portugal on May 1st. So that's really coming up. And that's, a tournament where you see just how much Paraguay is a footballing loving country because they go to futsal World Cups, they go to beach soccer World Cups. We're trying to get to the real thing. So for Paraguayans, there's always some kind of football that you can be watching or playing. But just on that though, despite being such a football loving country, it was surprising this week to see the stadiums really not very full for any of the games that the Paraguayan teams hosted in the Libertadores and Sudamericana. Maybe this points to something else. It's the end of the month, and in Semana Santa, people spend a lot of money and travel and go away. So probably it could be an economic thing, but it was just strange for me to see that these stadiums weren't getting sold out for these big games, whereas Vancouver and Andres Cubas maybe is the Messi effect, but they're selling out 50,000 people for their CONCACAF game. So I just thought that was an interesting contrast to see that sold out stadium last night in Canada, but Paraguay weren't able to do it.
Yeah, it's a weird one, and I point, we'll start with Cedro and I'll point the finger at them because, they were the team that were really coming in hot. Same with Libertad. And, the fact that they couldn't do it as well. But it could be that, Fed. I mean, obviously you're there in the country, you know what it's like there in comparison to what we do here in the United States, and obviously using the comparison of North America with Vancouver. But yeah, could it be that? Could it be just that sort of apathy towards the local league or something? Because you're right. Like, I kind of understand Olimpia to an extent, but still, I feel like they have every right to, pack out a stadium, must win, new manager, that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, I'm curious to see what you think about that. It's like you said, it's a football loving country, and obviously with the beach soccer World Cup happening with, they're in a group with Mauritania, Iran, and Portugal. I'm sure people are going to be focused on it at some point, but in terms of like how fans go to like actual games, like what could be that factor?
Yeah, it's a good thing to point out. Obviously, it's an important situation also because they're not being able to handle this. I mean, you're seeing precedents of different teams not talking about this issue and not doing absolutely anything as of right now. I mean, they're not offering combos for different games. They're not lowering the prices either. So you're thinking, okay, how are people really going to go to these matches when you have so many games during the year and you're not really making it any easier for anybody? So it is, I think, mainly because of that rich situation. I think it's a money thing. Just like Ralph said, it is the end of the month. People don't have enough money. It's really expensive for locals to go to stadiums, especially when you go with the whole family. Most people don't go here to the stadiums alone. They usually go in groups, at least with a couple of friends, right? And that's really an issue as of right now. Why aren't people feeling good about this team? Cerro Porteño in particular, because they lost the big games this year, I believe, and that kind of drew away the fans from this team. And there's the whole political side of it also. It is the end of an era in that sense. Eventually we'll come to that, but people have been kind of drawn off the team because of that also. And there's not one or two players that stand out in the Cerro Porteño team that you're saying, okay, I'm going to pay the entrance because I want to see this player play. There's, people are not going to the stands to watch Pachi Carrizo. People are not going to the stands to watch Cecilio Dominguez, to watch Iturbe, even though they are the best players in this team as of right now, but they're not, they're not selling tickets by themselves. And they're really away from the Apertura. They only have the Libertadores. And they have yet to face the big team. The only big team they faced is Palmeiras, and they lost that away game. So I think it has to do a lot with the results. Also, the fans have not fallen in love with the team, and they haven't fallen in love with the coach either yet, even though he has gotten good results. But the back and forth that he's had in different press conferences, I mean, I don't think he's been able to have that relationship going with the fans either. So it's definitely something to work on. It's definitely something that they got to do something about, because you need the fans in the stands. You need that atmosphere in Libertadores. You need everybody chipping in for a good campaign. And I'm not seeing that. I pointed that out before, that it was actually something that was even negative, I believed, in this team. I've heard it in different players after the games. I mean, this is not helping us out. We're losing games, and we need the fans by our sides. We need the fans to keep pushing us instead of booing us. So it's been different. It's been an issue that has just not been I believe taken care of by anybody, by the board members, by the coach, and the players haven't been able to also conquer the fans. So it's definitely an issue, Roberto, in Cerro Porteño, mainly because they're really doing well. They have the opportunity, I believe, out of the three teams in Libertadores, they're probably the one that are sitting in the best spot right now, even though the game got away from them.
Yeah, about to say, let's go into that, because I think they would have been in a much better position if, certain things didn't happen in the last minute. But obviously, Cerro Porteño took on Sporting Cristal. They were coming off that loss against Palmeiras. So obviously, this game at home were one of those games that you needed to win to really feel more comfortable about qualifying, especially since Palmeiras are also unbeaten so far. And, it started off badly, actually. Santiago Gonzalez getting the goal in the 37th minute for Sporting Cristal. But then, two goals in quick succession. Cecilio Dominguez getting the goal, and then Cecilio Dominguez getting the assist for Pachi Carrizo right before halftime. So it was really the good response that Cedro get. But, you saw also a team, and I'm going to go to Ralph first, because obviously they could have put this game away. You look at some of the changes that Diego Martinez made as well, heading in towards the last few minutes. And then ultimately it was Rafael Lutger that got the goal for Sporting Cristal, past Gatito Fernandez. And yeah, it slipped away from them. It really, I mean, they're still in the position, like right now, if the Libertadores ended right now, they would qualify because they have 4 points over Bolivar, who have 3. But it just gets more difficult now, because now Cedro have to go all the way to, I think they play Bolivar next, actually, if I'm not mistaken. No, they play Palmeiras, and then they have to go to take on Sporting Cristal, and then they got Bolivar to close it out. So that game that just happened could really end up being sort of a banana slip. And yeah, I think it was Cedro's chance to really feel more comfortable, and they couldn't do it.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I think we kind of saw the best and worst of Cerro in one game all happening, because the best of them is that team are so good going forward or creating opportunities, because they were just, I mean, even before the Cristal goal, they were pretty much all over them. Had very well set up that they knew Cristal would probably try and defend the box. So they were switching play. Alan Benitez was getting lots of space. And then on the other side, the other Benitez, right, Guillermo, was on the other side. And they were always finding their way behind the lines, getting balls into the box. And so you're thinking, surely the goal's going to come, the goal's going to come. But the problem Cerro are having, so that's maybe the best, is creating those chances. And by the way, they've scored 18 goals now in this year's Copa Libertadores. I mean, that's a lot of goals that they're scoring, always, except for the Palmeiras result, always multiple goals in games. But then you were seeing the worst of them, which was they get caught out on a break because it's a poor pass by Benitez, Alan Benitez. This is poor pass, and so it kind of sets up the break, and off goes Sporting Cristal and score. And it came, 10 seconds after Sporting Cristal had cleared the ball off the line from a chance that Cerro had in their box. So that kind of pointed out these are some of the problems. Again, we see the good side of Cerro Porteño when Pachi Carrizo and Cecilio start combining, and then they get 2 goals very quickly and they've turned the thing around. And it goes into halftime and you think, well, actually, this is pretty positive for El Ciclón. But then in the second half, it's the same problems as before. They're creating all these chances. I think they had 2 XG, 2 goals they should have scored in that second half. And they kept missing chances. Cecilio Dominguez, I think, missed maybe the worst one. But it's hard to pick out, from everybody. Nobody was finding the net. I think there's one where Cecilio has a header and Iturbe comes in at the far post and misses. It was just, chance after chance. And then you think about Diego Martinez. What's he going to do? Is he going to just keep going for this third goal to make it 3-1, which he was clearly doing? Or does he try and just sit the team and say, okay, we're winning. We've got, 10 minutes left. Let's just try and see this game out. So on 80 minutes, he makes a change, brings off Pachi Carrizo, but he decides to put on Alan Sonora. And so, of course, that's a decision where you're saying, I'm just going to make a like-for-like change. I'm not going to try and make our team more defensive. And this is not a criticism of Sonora himself, but that's just not a player you bring on when you're trying to see out the game, right? And so I think what we're seeing there is Diego Martinez still isn't, he doesn't want to change, right? He just wants to be that attacking coach, always looking for another goal. And as you mentioned, Roberto, they get caught out in the last minute. And again, by the way, they get caught out on a throw-in. So it's a throw-in where they're not organized defensively and the cross comes over and the header goes in, which if you remember, that's exactly what happened against Luqueño in the last minute in a league game. So that's really worrying, I think, for Diego Martinez, that he's suffering the same problems and he hasn't found a way to fix it. The team as a whole haven't found a way to fix it. And so we get this roller coaster game. And like you said, like I was saying, you see the best and worst of Cerro. You see a team that can create chances to score 3 or 4 goals, but also a team that isn't, I suppose, organized. I'll say organized, not maybe intelligent, but they're not organized enough to see out games when it really matters.
For me, it was a crazy game. I mean, you were just describing it, Ralph. I mean, they had possession at the beginning of the game. It looked like they were going to score first, and then you had the opportunities. You didn't make it happen. Sporting Cristal got the best of you on the counterattacks, and you weren't able to score all the opportunities that you had. I mean, I don't know. I wasn't able to count them because there were just so many during the game. But especially when they were up after, being that Ciclón, like you said, that twister run where they scored 2 goals to come back in that first half, you were thinking, okay, now they're going to handle the ball. Now they're going to be the best team out there and eventually they'll score another one because they were being the better team in the field. I mean, Sporting Cristal was coming with a new coach. They had lost, I believe out of the last 5 games, they had only won 1. So it wasn't looking pretty for them at all. So it was about putting the pressure on them and just knowing how to handle the game. But it got away from them on that last play. It was unbelievable, to be honest with you guys. It was a draw, but you felt like the team lost because, last minute goal, and they slept on it again, just like it happened against Luqueño. I mean, they slept on that situation. I mean, who threw the ball out there to the Peruvian? I didn't get that detail. I mean, you can't just throw the balls so they get that chance so quickly. I mean, you got to be on top of every single detail. You saw players that were just falling away from the play. They were looking at other places. I mean, those are things that can happen in Libertadores. These games are usually resolved this way with little details, with last minute plays, and you need to be able to handle those situations, especially at home. I mean, this was a game that no matter how, they needed to win. And going from a game that looked like they were about to win 3-1, 4-1 even maybe, to tying it to all, I mean, it just feels like they lost their opportunity. And I'm looking at the calendar and I'm thinking, okay, they got to play against Bolivar over there in La Paz. They got to play against Palmeiras now at home. I mean, it is not looking like they're going to have enough points to make it through. As of right now, the way I see it, they needed to win at home. And these opportunities, these 3 points are going to come back to them, Roberto.
Yeah, and certainly they got obviously the sort of advantage that they still have one more home game, but it's the most difficult of the three that they're gonna play. It's the game against Palmeiras, and then yeah, they have to go to Peru and they have to go to Bolívar. So I think it's yeah, I think it's certainly something that they need to get on the right foot on this one. But I don't know. I feel like, this sort of team hasn't found, and we've talked about this already a lot, Ralph, about, to close it out, but I feel like this inconsistency is just not been convincing at all. So you look at what's gonna happen, like, okay, they're gonna beat Palmeiras. They if they beat Palmeiras, they have every right to do it. They could. They have every right to. But then do they screw it up against Cristal? Do they screw it up in Bolivar? It's just you don't know what to expect from this team. That's always the concerning part, I think, for this set, or at least with Diego Martinez.
Yeah, I think we spoken before about the Paraguayan national team and Berizzo when he didn't win his home games against Bolivia and Peru, right? And so this is, you have the Bolivian team, Bolivar, and Cristal, the Peruvian team, and Cerro kind of slipped up in this one. You should really win your home games against Peruvian sides in the Copa Libertadores. By the way, this was their 14th match. They'd won 11 of 13 previously against Peruvian sides at home. Only that crazy loss to Garcilaso and about 10 years ago with Chiquiase. And then they had a tie in like 1991 or something. I mean, usually you just win the home games against Peruvian sides. And that's almost like a guaranteed 3 points when you're looking to progress from a group. So now by not having to do that, they're going to have to go to Lima and win. I think that's really what they need to do. Palmeiras, probably not going to happen. La Paz, they can actually afford to lose because Bolivar lost to Palmeiras, I think, last night at home. I think that really helped Cerro in their quest for that second place. But they're really going to have to go to Lima and win. And, looking at this team, like we're saying, it's hard to see. It's hard to know what you're going to get in game by game. Like, is Iturbes and Cecilio and Jonathan Torres all going to play really well in one game together? If they do, great, you're going to win easily. If they don't, you have things like last night where actually they were playing well in patches, but not for the whole game. But the real thing, I think, what you talked about inconsistency is because there's inconsistency in team selection. There's injuries. There's not really knowing who your best player is. Diego Leon has gone from, this starting left back that's going to Manchester United to his third choice. Because last night, when they brought on the left back substitute, it was Rivas. It wasn't Diego Leon. So, I mean, this team is, a lot of things are moving around, and it's because you had a project that was started a year ago, and the people that were running that project are now out, not just the coach, but the sporting directors, the scouting, the video analysts, like everything was gone. So you have this new project, and so now you have a mix of players, right? But what you don't have is the team, because it's this strange mix of, I think Fede pointed out as well, like people don't want to come and see Iturbe and Cecilio. And it's because almost it's like it's an old thing, right? It's like, oh yeah, they came last year. They were the big thing last year, but that's not what we want. Or Pachi Carrizo has been there years. Obviously, he left, came back. But you just feel like there's a bit of that old guard. And then you have the new guys that have come in. So Gaston Jimenez and Sonora and Jonathan Torres, those kind of people. And so how is that gelling together? How is that working out? And at the moment, I don't think it's quite clicking, like you said. So I don't have much hope for them against Palmeiras at home. To be very honest, I think when we talk about Libertad, we can talk about how the Brazilian teams are so good at managing games. But if they win in Lima, that will be their hope to get through in this group.
Yeah, and looking at another team that, really needed to win that one, and I feel like they're in a worse spot to qualify is Olimpia because obviously they had that game against Peñarol. Fede with their new coach with Bustos, as you mentioned, it's really certainly something that they needed to do it, and they couldn't do it. They couldn't close it out. They needed this win, and they ended up really not doing well. I mean, obviously they got really lucky that really their goalkeeper had to step up for this one. The fact that Versa, Lucas Versa had to be the main man, which, to be honest, with the team with players like Benedetto, like Ronnie Redes, Darius Gonzalez, you know, really good players on their end, they couldn't do it and close out the game against a Peñarol team that obviously also needed to win this one. But yeah, it was a disappointing kind of Copa Libertadores debut for Bustos and this whole sort of Olimpia team where I don't know, man. I feel like, especially with San Antonio Bulo getting their win, they're on 1 point now, and they need to hope for a miracle. But I think Olimpia's Libertadores dream ended that this week.
A lot of people are feeling that way, especially because of the way the team is playing, right? I mean, yeah, you got a new coach, but he had less than a week to prepare the team for this very special game. So definitely not enough time for Fabian Bustos to know his stuff, know his players, and pick the right ones, I believe, either because he had a game before. It was against Luqueño. Well, at least he was in the stands watching that game. Aureliano took over for 2 games, I believe. Aureliano Torres, who was the manager of the reserve team, and he put in a lot of young players, and that was kind of refreshing actually to a lot of fans. And people were thinking, okay, are these young players also going to be taken into consideration by Fabian Bustos for that crucial game against Peñarol? And no, it wasn't that way. We had again Richard Ortiz coming in that midfield. You had Roberto Rojas and Lisandro Lopez being the center backs, and he went again with Benedetto and Derlis Gonzalez in offense. So he pretty much went with the same team that Palermo was putting out there. The only new name was Lucas Berza, who took over already a couple of games ago because Arzamendi really wasn't up to it, and he was being scored on pretty much every game, and he wasn't feeling secure. So they tried out Lucas Berza, who had 2 really good games, had an opportunity to stop that penalty in this game, and he was vital. I mean, he was probably the best player out there besides Facundo Zavala, who is always, that energy booster. He's always trying to put the team out there on that left side, but he can't be your star. You need Leguizamon, you need Benedetto, you need other players to step forward, especially the experienced players. Leguizamon was coming off a fantastic game against Sportivo Luqueño, playing on the right side, and you put him back on the left side because you want Ronnie Redes out there. I mean, that's really weird on me because I don't think the coach made the right decisions. I'm not going to put it all on him because he just got here, but it's on the players, and people are pointing fingers at the players. Derlis Gonzalez had an opportunity right before the end of the game, right under the goal. Prato came in and put the assist, put a really good pass there for Derlis, who couldn't take his opportunity. You're just not feeling comfortable with this team. You don't think that this team has enough in Libertadores. You don't see them up to the pace. Benedetto can't score a goal on anybody. He's shooting from all over the place. When is this guy ever going to score with this jersey? I mean, he's wearing the number 9, but take it away from him. He does not look like a center forward. He's in the midfield making passes. He's getting angry with his teammates because they're not passing the ball to him. He already taunted at the fans on the last game. I mean, I'm really getting sick of some players on this team, and I want to see how Fabian Bustos goes forward with all these issues in defense, in that midfield, and with his forwards not scoring. He's got so much work to do. I don't know how he's going to make it happen, but he was definitely not a magician, at least in this game. Peñarol had the best opportunities, and I think they were the ones that actually deserved it during the 90 minutes. Ralph, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, so this game is interesting. I didn't watch this game. I listened to it on the radio. Shout out to Chipi Chung because I was listening to those guys as I was driving, and you could feel the kind of growing tension that Peñarol were going to pick them off. They were going to do something, and then at the beginning of the second half, they get the penalty, and it's Lucas Versa that makes it save. And so, just a point on him, I think this is really interesting about the one issue that Palermo had at the beginning of the year that he didn't have last year was the defense, right? They just weren't as strong as they had been previously. And one big thing was, of course, the player of the year last year was Gaston Oliveira, the goalkeeper, who got injured. And so, to Fede's point, Arcemendia he wasn't able to bring, I think, some of that security. And so that's the first thing Aureliano Torres did, was change his goalkeeper and bring in Versa, who's 24 years old, so very young for a goalkeeper. And I think previously been at Santani, so not in top level football. Definitely not in this big pressure situation. And interestingly, that's one thing Bustos has continued. And in the 4 games since Palermo has gone and Versa has come in as goalkeeper, they've only conceded once to Luqueño. They've had 3 clean sheets. The goal that they do concede to Luqueño is an amazing strike, long distance strike. So kind of not much you can do with it. So I think somewhere along the line, Olimpia is starting to figure out one of the problems, which is defense. The other thing they've done, apart from change the goalkeeper, is Roberto Rojas has come into centre back, not right back. I think he can't play right back. He's struggled there so much. But we saw that at River. We saw that so many times. So he's back at centre back, where he was so good for Guarani back in the day with Lopez. So I think that's starting to help. And then they brought Espinola, who I think maybe he was injured, because I'm surprised he wasn't playing before, but Espinola now right back. And that brings you really somebody with a lot of experience. And the thing I always liked about Espinola at right back, and now they have Zavala at left back, they're quite tall guys. They're quite good in the air. So it actually helps them when you're having to defend in the box, and teams that will go direct and long against you, which a lot of teams end up doing against Olimpia, they have that. So that's the good news, right? A bit more security. Going to up front, and the main issue, I think, and it's a very similar issue to Cerro, actually, that we're talking about the old guys, right, that have been there before. There's this feeling that you have to play Derlis, you have to play Richard Ortiz, you have to play Dario Benedetto to kind of almost get them on your side, I guess, as the new coach. But on the pitch, they're not really demonstrating that. So there's a feeling that, are you picking your best team on form, or are you picking a team on names? And at the moment, it's on names, especially with Benedetto. There was, on Monday, there was like, they call it in Paraguay a santero. So like a kind of, was a word, like a voodoo priest, I guess, was saying that he's been possessed, and that's why he can't score. But he was gonna light a candle for him so he scores on Wednesday. But I guess it didn't even work for Benedetto, because he still hasn't scored. I mean, that feels like a situation that I thought Olimpia could have been clever. When Bustos comes in, it could have been a moment to rescind the contract and just be like, can we cut our losses here? New coach, this is not the guy who brought you in. They haven't done that, so they're going to be stuck with him for longer. And I say stuck with him because the problem of Benedetto is, he has the quality, he has kind of the influence, especially on some of the younger players, you would assume, and he has this huge salary. So you kind of end up feeling, oh, I have to try him out, I have to do something with him. But it's just clearly not working. I mean, whatever it is, it hasn't clicked. And he's a player that's come off about 2 years of these similar problems. So I think Olimpia have a big issue there. And then Fede mentioned about the young players. So I wrote something on Substack about Palermo recently. And what I looked at was, what were Olimpia doing with under 20s in the league? And they've given 65, or at the time, they're given 65 minutes to under 20s players. Cerro had given like 1,000 or 1,200 minutes. I mean, it's totally different the way these guys are producing young players at the moment. Libertad's in the middle, somewhere between Cerro and them, and like 600. But Olympia's like way off. They're relying way too much on these older players, and they're not bringing somebody through. And they have to do that, right? To have that spark, to have that difference. It's all good, Leguizamon and Redes, but you need a kid that's going to like blow people away and score 4 or 5 crucial goals, and then that becomes a new hero. That gets people back into the stadium as well, because they want to see that new talent. So I think that's something Olimpia is really missing as well.
I think for also, now switching gears now to Libertad, also have, if you want to talk about a team with a bunch of experience, you got that team right there, I mean, what, Ivan Franco's probably the youngest one, but he's like 25, and you got a lot of, old, no, I shouldn't say old, but definitely more experienced players as they went to go take on Sao Paulo. And really, it was one of those weird games where, obviously Libertad took advantage. I think they had most shots actually in comparison to São Paulo. So in theory, they should have won this game or at least get one goal. They could have had a good chance, but Melgarejo missed his penalty, and ultimately São Paulo got the 2 goals. Fede. I mean, this one, sort of a an arrow to the heart, you would say for Bado Aquino's team. I mean, obviously they are still in a good spot to qualify. I mean, I think it's going to be interesting, especially with Alianza Lima beating Talleres. I think now it's kind of gotten a bit more gritty towards the end of, or at least heading into the midway of the Libertadores group stage. But that was not the result that Libertad wanted, especially at playing at home.
Yeah, they were missing a couple of important players, I believe. In that defense, Martin Cáceres had to come in as a right back because Ivan Ramirez wasn't available. And I thought he really struggled in that position because, you're kind of seeing a player that, he's coming from the MLS. He's not that young anymore. I don't think he can really play as a right back. I think he can only play as a center back. So they didn't have anybody to come in there. I felt like he was really uncomfortable as Libertad tried to take over way too early when they saw, okay, we're having a good game against Sao Paulo. We're holding them off, and now it's our opportunity. I think that's the way they were looking at it in there. Libertad likes to win at home. They thought that they had a good opportunity in what it was a night, with storm, with rain. The stadium didn't have that many Libertad fans, but it was full of Sao Paulo fans because they had a lot of people in the stands, and their team really they really took over at a certain point. I think even Patito Aquino, I think he was outplayed by a coach that has more experience like Subaldia, right? Even in that game against Guarani in the local league against Chiqui Arce, I think he was outplayed also. Tactically, I think, the other coaches had a better read on what was happening on the pitch. And I think that was key, going forward in those last minutes, because that's how the match pretty much ended, with the Sao Paulo hitting them on the counter attack with a very young player, just 18 years old, that came through and made the difference. And you didn't see the best Libertad really out there. I mean, with Ernesto Caballero in that midfield, I'm not liking it that too much. I think you need Lucas Sanabria in there, or you need Chori Martinez, who was their midfielder against Alianza. He was sent off. He got a red card. That's why he wasn't available for this game. And then you have contributions that are just not enough in this team. Marcelo Fernandez is not scoring lately. Lorenzo Melgarejo, he had his huge opportunity in this game and he didn't pull through. He's not scoring lately either. He's not contributing. And you're seeing Ivan Franco, who is probably the best player right now out there, but you're not getting the same from the center forwards. You're not getting the goals from Oscar Cardoso. You're not getting the goals from Roque Santa Cruz, who got injured a couple games ago and hasn't been able to come back. It hasn't looked well for Roque in that situation of just keep on playing games. Tacuara is now playing more, but he's not in his top shape as we're seeing him out there. And then you're bringing in the new guys, Alcaraz, Aguilar. They're contributing in one game, yes, in another game, no. I mean, they're not stable either coming in. And he's always going with the same situation. He's always trying out with the big guys, try to end the game. And I think, other coaches are starting to pick up on the way Libertad plays under Aquino and the way he tries to solve games. So I think the coaches got the best out of this team in these last 2 games. That's why they lost also, Ralph.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, that as you start getting into the second half of the season, when a coach has played against you once already, that's when they start to figure out some of these problems. And we used to see it a lot with Fernando Jubero. Used to have really good starts to the season, and the second half came down, and it was a feeling that he'd sometimes been figured out in games. I mean, this match was so strange. Maybe it was the rain. It was torrential rain, but that first half, I just felt like Sao Paulo were almost playing in slow motion. They had no XG. I think they had like 0.05. So they had like maybe one long shot, but they never seemed to be struggling. But their build up was so slow And then Libertad on the same side with Ernesto Caballero and Campuzano is also that double pivot. It was also so slow. And so the game was like really, it was like as if the pitch was waterlogged. It wasn't, but it was if like the rain was causing things to slow down. And in my mind, I think I put it on Twitter at halftime. I was like, is this like Sao Paulo just testing them out and then they're going to hit them? And it kind of felt that way because they brought on, maybe it was almost by chance, but Cedric Suarez was injured with a head injury. So they brought on this 18-year-old Lucas Ferreira at right back. And he had a huge impact because he had a lot more spark, a lot more pace. It's him that scores the first goal. And then I think he ends up making the second one. So, I mean, that really brought some life into that game. And suddenly Libertad felt, okay, we're in a game now where we're having to actually defend a bit. And compared to the first half where it was just, almost like build up, lose the ball, build up, go back. You thought that they were going to get that lifeline from the penalty, and yeah, Melgarejo is such a strange penalty. The one step, I'm gonna do the one step and then aim for the top corner. He was very close. I mean, hits the bar, but come on, those penalties always look so bad when you miss them, right? Like a Panenka, if you miss them, it just looks so bad, especially as the goalkeeper hardly moved. The goalkeeper was going to be out of it. And at that point, you felt it was good that Alcaraz had come in, he won the penalty, made a bit of a difference. But you just felt, I can't see Sao Paulo. They're scared. They're not going to give it up again. And that was the way. I mean, Sao Paulo just sucked it in, and in the end get the other goal, the second goal late on. I think they had a third. They got the ball in the net as well, but it was ruled off for offside. So I mean, it was just a really well planned game by Sao Paulo. And like you were saying, Fede, for Patito Aquino, he's kind of now it's almost like he's had his like introduction into football management, and now he's getting like, oh, this is the next level as teams know me and teams or bigger teams like Sao Paulo come and start to figure me out. So it's not the end of the world. Losing at home to a Brazilian team, not the end of the world. But I think we said on the last podcast, we said, let's see really how good they are. This will be the test. And unfortunately, I think we got our answer that they're still going to be a step behind these are the Brazilian teams as we think about knockout rounds.
Well, we do have to have some positive news at least, and we did get them from two teams actually. We got one from Guarani, who were able to get a really big win against Independiente, obviously a giant in South America from Argentina. Gustavo Vargas getting the brace. It was a really tight game. Uh, wasn't a lot of fans also at the stadium, like Ralph and obviously you Fede has mentioned as well, but they were able to get the win. And Sportivo Luqueño also getting a result over there in Lima in Peru. That they did take the lead in the first two from the first two goals, but ultimately they had to concede. So kind of a missed opportunity, similar to obviously what happened to Cerro. But hey, at least that's some sort of progress in the Sudamericana, Ralph, for the Paraguayan team, especially for Guarani, who are still unbeaten, the only unbeaten team in the Libertadores so far, in any competitions from Paraguay.
Yeah, really good for Guarani, really good for Chiquiase, who doesn't always do well in these group stages of tournaments. Because I think we talked about Cerro today. Earlier they lost to Real Garcilaso. That was when he was manager of Cerro. So it was really surprising first that Gustavo Vargas, the defender, ends up scoring two goals, and especially the way the first goal comes about, right? So he's up for a set piece. Everything breaks down. The ball's fallen back to the fullback who Canteros who's covering. And usually in those situations, especially at 0-0 in the first half of a game, I mean the central defenders are going to start working their way back, right? And I don't know, Vargas just kind of gambled, stayed up there. The long ball comes over and it's flicked into the box, and he's there in basically the position that you would expect Fernando Fernandez to be in. And he finishes like Fernando Fernandez. I mean, really takes it very well to put them ahead. Then when Independiente get the red card, you thought, okay, I mean, this is now we're talking, right? We got a real chance here at halftime. We're 1-0 up, a player up. And then Independiente come back into it, and suddenly you're like, it's been another missed opportunity. But the nice thing I think about Guarani and about Chiquiase now, the way he's using the players in some of these games is he's able to do a bit more with less of the ball, whereas before that wasn't always the case, especially with Mendieta, Fernandez that are always so good and so, what's the word, like they're so incisive, they're so clinical when they do get their chances. But in the end, it's another set piece, and it's Vargas again who's on the end of it to get the winner, and amazing result. And he's now scored 3 goals in the Copa Sudamericana, which puts him at second all-time top scorer for Guarani in the competition, because no other player except for Federico Santander had scored more than 2 goals until Vargas, who's now got 3 in this edition, right? So it's an amazing story and great news for Guarani that they have a really good chance of qualifying and going through to the next round.
He was playing in Intermedia 2 years ago, guys. He was playing in second division when Chiqui Arce looked at the players that he had on loan that were, on the registers of Guarani, and he saw Vargas out there, and he was like, "No, bring him back. I'm going to eventually use him as a center back. I'm going to give him his opportunities." I think it kind of took him a while to, get stable as a center back. But once he took over the spot, I mean, nobody discusses lately. I mean, does Gustavo Vargas has to come off? No, he's been really good. He's been one of the best players in that defense. And what an amazing game from him. I mean, scoring 2 goals, that doesn't usually happen for a defender. So it was a magical night in that sense. And just like Ralph was saying, 3 goals in his career, guys, all in the international stage. He's never scored on the local league. This guy only knows about coming up or showing up in big games. So great for Gustavo Vargas. You love to see it when these stories kind of happen, and I love it when it's from a local coach, when it's from a coach that's just like Rafa was saying. I mean, he's always been taunted as being way too stubborn. And he wasn't stubborn in this game. I mean, he saw right away, Willy Mendieta, he's not going to work for us in that midfield. We need a player that has to run a lot more. He brought in Alcides Benitez. Did that work out? Probably not, because either way, Guarani ended up suffering the match. I was just looking at the stats while Raf was talking about this game, and it was over 60 possession for Independiente. Guarani barely had the ball. Clearly, Independiente had great opportunities, but sometimes these are the way that you got to play against these kind of big teams. And I thought Guarani was really smart about it, and they have a lot of players that are really standing out right now. I thought they were going to have problems when Servio got injured. I was grabbing my head and I was thinking, oh my God, this is the captain. This is the player that usually takes up the penalties. But this is also probably one of their best players because he's a really good goalkeeper, one of the best in the Paraguayan league. And no, Martin Rodriguez has really come through in these games. He's been really ready for his opportunity. So it's great to see that also, when you got players that fall out of the game, out of the team, you got players that can step up in these kind of situations. So I'm rooting for this Guarani. I think they're on a magical run in Sudamericana, and Sudamericana is that way, guys. I mean, you got Mushuk Runa, who hasn't lost a single game in Sudamericana. Why not have Guarani go through and maybe have a good run? They have an experienced coach. They have players that can do something special. Fernando Fernandez, a player that's been, I believe, been waiting for an opportunity to compete in a competition like this for his team. They have a lot of players, young players that have come from the youth team. So I'm really looking forward to what this Guarani can still do in this Sudamericana, and I want more fans in the stands, just like Roberto said. I mean, the way this team is playing, they're the only team that's really competing, and they're way off the budgets that Cerro, Olimpia, and Libertad have. So the fans really got to be on this team, especially in Sudamericana, where they're doing really well, Roberto.
Well, I'm about to say as well, looking at the league, we'll go into that because, certainly Libertad have looked a bit cold, and you have teams like Guarani, Olimpia, Cerro Porteño kind of looking at that. I mean, is there that feeling? I still feel Libertad are going to run away with it at the end, but I don't know, guys. I mean, I'll go to Fede first. I mean, is there that feeling of maybe something, or is it just like, no, it's just a little blip, Libertad will bounce back and they'll win the Apertura convincingly?
I think they're going to win it eventually. I thought a couple of weeks ago was about how fast are they going to be champions. I mean, just how soon are they going to be champions, right? right now after losing to Guarani, and you're seeing that this Guarani team is looking hot, they're looking fresh, and they're keeping up all their players. I mean, Mendieta is healthy, Fernando Fernandez is healthy. They got that defense pretty much healthy also. So I'm thinking, okay, Guarani is in it for the long run. Cerro and Olimpia are distracted with the Libertad, especially Cerro Porteño. Olimpia has enough problems on their hands to try to figure out what they can do in these last games. So it's up to Libertad, really. Are they going to let go of it? Are they really going to melt down in the second half of the tournament? Or are they going to win the important games against the big teams just like they did in this first half? I still believe in this team just because I believe they have the best squad. They have way enough players. And eventually, I think when the calendar gives them enough time in between games, they're going to be back to their best form. This is the problem, right? For most Paraguayan teams, when they start competing every 3 days, you got to change up players. Players are not playing at the same level, and you can lose a couple. And this is what happened to Libertad. It's just a flu. It's just a cold. I don't think they're going to be in the freezer during the whole second half. That's what I believe. I think they're still going to be champions.
Yeah, I think the same. I couldn't see them giving us. It's only 8 points now, the gap, so only 8, right? So, but I can't see them giving that up because that would mean a 3-game swing, and they've already played Guarani. So I mean, they're not going to be able to lose to them again, kind of thing. But I just don't think, maybe it's not as easy as we were saying. We might end up going to maybe just 2-3 games left in the season, and it might get a bit closer to that 4 points where you feel exciting, something could happen. The reason being that we don't know how quickly they'll come out of this, not slump. Well, slump. They've gone 2 games without winning in the league, right? It's a draw and a loss. But yeah, it might take them a bit of time to pick things up. With Roque being injured, it does affect them a bit because he was enjoying that switch, right? I'll just switch out Cardoso for Roque, similar to what Galliano had done last year. And now he doesn't have that luxury, and you have Melgarejo not scoring. So there's just a couple of things that maybe is not so obvious that they're going to win every game. That said, I mean, Guarani now have this great position as well. Their next trip, I think, is to Potosí, so big, altitude. And do you want to get players ready for that, or do you want them playing against in a league match? So there is the point that maybe Guarani are not fully focused either. I think both Olimpia and Cerro definitely are not thinking about the league. They're not going to go all out to try and break down 9 points, or is it 9? Or yeah, 9 points at this stage. I mean, they've got other things to do, especially Olimpia. There's really in a rebuilding phase now since Palermo left. So I still think they'll win it. It just won't be, maybe it won't be as a runaway as we were expecting maybe 2-3 games ago when they were unbeaten. It seemed nothing could touch them.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be interesting towards the end of this apertura, see who does go out. I agree. I think all of us are agreeing that Libertad are gonna do it. I think this is just a little blip in the system that happens to all the great teams. So I think Libertad and the Gumarero fans should really feel confident they're gonna win the 2025 apertura as we go into now what we've seen abroad, because there's been a lot of crazy things happening in the last week. Like you said, we saw Julio Enciso scoring for Ipswich. We saw Andres Cubas getting in that sort of beef with Messi, then beating Vancouver beating Inter Miami in the CONCACAF Cup, and obviously Romero scoring in Corinthians. I mean, there's a lot been going on. So I mean, I think what I've been enjoying has been Enciso. Like Ramon Sosa, he was on social media as well. We could talk about that, but if I had to pick out one, I think it's Enciso. Like I feel like he's really gaining this sort of confidence. It sucks that his Ipswich team is not going to go up. They're not going to stay up. They're gonna get relegated, and he has to go back to Brighton. Who knows what's going to happen to him? We don't know what the sort of this future is, but at least there, and especially now with this kind of timing with, obviously the World Cup qualifiers happening in June, if Paraguay are in a good spot, they qualify officially by that time. But at least it's nice to see Julio getting that sort of form right now for Ipswich, at least as much as they can get, as much of a chance to have him still there. But that's what I've been enjoying. I mean, Ralph, I mean, what have you been kind of impressed so far from the Paraguayans abroad?
Well, with Julio, I think the best thing has been that he's getting minutes, right? That's been such an issue with the injuries, and there were even, I think, at one point people were saying, was he taking care of himself correctly? And so many things happening. Now he's getting lots of time. And really, they give him lots of freedom, which is what he needs. I think it was this week he was on Premier League talking about, his idol was Ronaldinho, and that I think that really sums up a lot the way he plays. Unfortunately for him, Ronaldinho was playing 20 years ago when, I mean, football was just so different. And so you talked about him scoring, and then in the game against Arsenal, he was by far Ipswich's most attacking and most creative threat. But he also gives the ball away from the first goal, and that's going to be this whole thing you have with Enciso, like how much freedom can I risk giving him? And at the moment, Ipswich can do it because I think McKenna has decided, we're going to get relegated, we're going to go down, but we're going to go down playing good football. Similar to what Burnley did under Vincent Kompany, and then he went off to Bayern. So maybe McKenna has an idea with that. So he wants to play players like Enciso because he knows this is my best attacking threat and the person that can really make a difference. But then you wonder if he falls in with another coach, and maybe this is what happened at Brighton, that doesn't really want that. It wants to have people a bit more rigid, a bit more positional. Then he doesn't have a space. So this is going to be the big thing with Enciso. But the important thing is he's getting minutes. And then we were talking off air about another player, about Enzo Gonzalez, who isn't getting minutes because he's still injured and still hasn't come back for Wolves. And they're starting to become quite a concern. He was injured in the Olympics in August. So he was really expected to be back by now. And what I haven't seen is I haven't even seen him doing ball work in training. Like I've only seen him in the gym. So you feel he's still a step away because he'll have to do that first before he can even think about minutes. And that's just a bit of a worry about the time we're in of the season, that there's not much time left. And so what if he misses that and then it's preseason again? I mean, he won't play any competitive football until August. So that will be a whole year. And that's really difficult for a young player. So I guess we got the contrast of those two Libertad players, and yeah, just a note on Cubas last night. I thought it was great. I mean, it was a really nice game. I only watched the first half of that game, but it was just really nice to see that full stadium and people actually really supporting the home team, because what has happened in a lot of MLS games, right, is that the stadium almost gets like 50-50 between people who are there to watch Messi and people who actually support the home team. And there it was like, I think they were all out. The Vancouver fans sniffed a final, and they're very close. And I thought it was great of Cubas to put in that typical performance that we've seen so much in the national team with the Albiroja, and to see that he's still doing that ahead of the big games, that's going to be really good for us.
Yeah, I want to pick it up on Julio Enciso. I want to go back to Julio because I think so far we got to say it was a correct choice. It was the right choice to go to Ipswich and pick up minutes, right? I mean, he's been able to show his stuff. He's been able to put himself out there. And now when the transfer market opens up again, I mean, I think big teams are going to look at him. And I want to see him in a big team. I haven't seen that yet, and I want to see a coach that maybe even thinks I can build a team around a player like him for the long run. I hopefully we get that project. I don't see that in Brighton. I don't know what's going to happen with their coach. I don't know what's going to happen with their next season, but it's definitely going to be a talking topic going forward with Julio. I mean, where is he going to play next, right? I mean, where is he going to get his minutes? And the World Cup is coming along also. So this next decision, I think, is going to be vital for him. I kind of want to see him out of the Premier League, to be honest with you guys. I kind of want to see him in other European leagues where he can feel more free, where he can do his stuff, where there's more space and not so tactical like it is in Premier League. But I think he still wants to show his stuff out there, and it's been an opportunity in Ipswich where he has had his contribution. And talking about other stuff, for me it was Andres Cubas, like I mentioned in the introduction. The game he had against Messi, this is not the first time he's gone against him. So he has that experience. He knows exactly what he's going to see out there. And I love Messi. I'm a Messi fan. I watched him pretty much all his career play. But Messi is on the latter stages of his career. So he has a couple of days where he's not on his top form, where they can get the best of him. And we've seen him get nervous in this Inter Miami. He's had discussions before with other players that have gotten the best of him. And I loved that Andres Cubas got the best of him, because when you get the best out of the best player in the world, it's because you're in a really good place. You're doing things the way that you're supposed to do. So this speaks really well of just, in the form that Andres Cubas is right now. He's been playing constantly. And when he comes to the national team, I mean, he's just one of the best players out there. Everybody's loving him in Paraguay. As of right now, nobody's ever thinking, oh, this guy was born in Argentina. No, he just became one more in that Paraguayan locker room. And even the guys love him, even his teammates, from what I saw in these last couple of games. So I'm really looking forward to him making it to the final. I'm a Messi fan, but I'm rooting for the Canadian team. I'm rooting for the Whitecaps. I'm all over that stadium. I love to see that many people in the stands in the Canadian soccer game. That's something totally new to me, but I think it has to do with the way this team is playing. And I believe they can even take the Coca Champions if they get a good result back in Miami, man.
It's a World Cup stadium, by the way, so that could be one that Paraguay could go back to if it all goes well. So, always keep an eye on that. But yeah, it's been a really fun and interesting week as always, as we always do here on Guarani Vision, as we close out another great episode. For myself, Roberto Rojas, Fede Perez, and Ralph Hannah, thank you so much for listening in. See you soon.